All right. Good morning, everyone. And Pete, this is your life, your story, with all the people around you who love you. There are about 61 people who have joined us so far, 61 devices, and more to come. There are a couple of very, very special guests today who I want to welcome from the outset. One is your long-lost cousin, Peter Wise, and his wife, all the way from New Zealand, who have joined us to be able to fill in some of the story. It is an extraordinary story indeed. The other person I want to welcome is your very, very dear friend, somebody who in a funny small way I was in a sense instrumental in helping you to meet, and you've been the closest of friends for the last 40 years, and that's Jeffrey Mittelman. Jeffrey, you're with us? Great to have you here. And of course, your family are here, the Tabushes, Ron and Julie Tabush, and of course, Ruth and Bobby and all the others who've been so hugely supportive of you and shown you such love. So welcome to all of you. And Pete, this is going to be just an easy conversation. We want to hear just a bit about your story. And we're going to turn to Peter Wise from New Zealand to fill in bits of it as well. And we'll ask Jeffrey to fill in bits also. But Pete, let's go back pretty much to the beginning. Your mum and your dad. Your mum's what, Czechoslovakia? She's in the camps. She's a survivor. How does that work?
My mum came here to England. She was given a time to work and live, and she worked for non-Jews.
So what about your dad, Pete? Where's your dad?
My father, she met in England in 1921, 22. And they met in up north.
Was he Jewish?
No, he was from Czechoslovakia as well.
Right. And your mum had been in the camps?
No, she'd been over. Came over in 1998, something like that.
Okay, so she married your dad, and you were born. What happened to your dad?
She lost their first child.
Yes.
He died after a month.
Right.
And then they had me the second time, 1943.
And what happened with your dad after that?
My father, unfortunately, after the war, 1945, my father went with my father with mum in 1945, and they flew over, went to Czechoslovakia. He was in uniform at the time. Okay. And after a couple of months, he left her.
Right. So you never knew your father?
I knew him up to the age of, actually I remember him right up to the age of 4 years old.
Right. And then he just walked away, walked out of marriage.
Went out with a non-Jewish woman he knew before the war. Right. And they went together again.
So your mum was left in Czechoslovakia with you as her child. Her husband has left her. How did she manage to come to England?
She had this lady. She was a member of the like
refugee.
No, she was in charge of the people who went
to come back over.
Yeah. And she brings your mum over. Where do you land up living?
in in
Leamington Spa.
Leamington Spa.
Leamington Spa. So you're being brought up in Leamington Spa. You're about 4 or 5 years old at this stage, or a little bit older.
I left Mum when I was 7 1/4.
Well, hang on a second. Just tell us, first of all, about Leamington Spa. You're living there. Do you have
I was
any...
brought up, I didn't have any Jewish, I didn't have any Jewish education whatsoever.
Did you know that you were Jewish when you were young?
No, no.
So...
But they used to let me go to their magazine or whatever it was.
Right.
And that's all.
So what, you left your mum at 7 1/2. What happened? She
couldn't look after me anymore. I had to go to a Jewish home in where was it? In
Stamford Hill. Stamford Hill.
My first Jewish home. Oh, I forgot the name of the place. It wasn't
Schneider's.
It was near there, not far from them.
So your mum can't look after you. Why? She's not well. She's mentally not well, physically not well. What's the problem?
At all.
Pardon?
She couldn't look after me at all.
Why is that, Pete?
Didn't have a home anyway. She lost
right.
When
they died.
They died, and all kinds of things happened.
Right. So you're packed off to Stamford Hill. Why Stamford Hill of all places?
Because they knew all about. The funny thing was, I could read Hebrew. I could read, but not
write it.
I can't explain it. It was.
You could read it, but you couldn't speak it, could you? You couldn't speak Hebrew.
I could read Hebrew, but not know the meaning of it. So
you land up in Stamford Hill. You are sent to what, a religious school?
It was absolutely religious.
and you're a boy from Leamington Spa, without a dad, mum who's not well. How are you coping in Stamford Hill? How's it working out for you there?
I hated it, absolutely. Absolutely hated the place. Can't explain you what they tried to beat. They used to beat me up.
No kidding. What, the teachers?
Teachers and the elder boys.
So you were bullied.
And I was with them till about 10 years old, and then I'd run away so many times that they were happy to see me go to somebody else.
When you ran away, where did you run to?
Anywhere, but
you're a 10-year-old kid. You're in London on your own without any family. You're in a place where you're being bullied and beaten. When you run away, you must run away somewhere. What happens? Will you find yourself on the street? You go to someone? Do you have a friend?
Most of my getting away was during the summer. In the winter, I was okay.
Right.
I didn't care what they did.
And then, do they send the police to find you and they bring you back, or you come back by yourself?
I had the police look after me, look for me, and look up. I can't tell you how many people I had the police look for me. And
when you ran away, did you get into trouble? Did you do naughty things?
Of course. I enjoyed it, as a matter of fact. I used to sleep with the yachts, the old yachts. I liked them.
What, in the street?
In the street.
Sleeping in the street?
Sleeping in the street. Go to bed about 10 o'clock at night time with them, and I knew how to make all these pills and things like that. I still know all about it, even after all these years.
Really? Right. But eventually you hauled back to Schneider's in Stamford Hill. It's a very, very super religious regime. It's not for you. What happens next?
Then I left them. They at 10 they wanted me to go already.
Where'd you go? Where'd you go after that?
A non-Jewish place for a couple of weeks until they found they were liberal Jewish people.
Right.
And then at the age of 10 and a half, it was 10 and a half or so, I went to Norwood.
And what was it like? What was it like in Norwood?
Again, I hated the place.
Why?
Absolutely hated. I can't explain what it was like. But,
were you beaten there as well?
Huh?
Were you beaten and bullied there as well, or were they nice to you?
No, not so much. Not so much. I gave them sometimes back. They were my age, and I'd beat them up the same age as me. But if they were a bit thing, then they beat me.
So it was a pretty tough environment.
It was. And then
where was Norwood at that time? In the countryside, or?
Northwest. It's still. Oh, what's the name of that? But it's in northeast. NE or SE 27.
Right. How many years were you in Norwood for?
I was there roughly from 10 till 15. I left as soon as I left school.
Did you finish any? Did you take any school qualifications?
No, I started learning from the age of 13 to 15.
Right.
Before that, I had to be careful not to be over Jewish or too much learning.
Why?
Jealousy. Oh, jealousy. So I had to
and tell me your health at that stage, some of the things which afflicted you later in terms of your asthma and your epilepsy, etc. Were they already manifested at that time, or did that come later?
That was there before I had that thing when I was a kid.
Right. So already at Norwood, you were suffering severe health problems.
I went to somewhere in the south of London. Forgotten the name. It's in my head. I know where it is, and I can't.
What, a school, Peter? Was it school or
no? It
where
was
you went to work?
in Devon. I went to Devon.
Okay.
And went there for 6 months.
For health reasons.
They wanted me to stay longer because I was getting very happy with the non-Jews.
Right.
In fact, I was beginning to enjoy it so much I didn't want to leave them.
So what happened when you left at the age of 15? Where did you go?
That's where I was Norwood sent me there.
Oh, is this the time when you went to work in the fur trade? Is that what you're referring to?
That was when I was 15.
15. So you left school, you start to work, and you're working in the fur trade. What you're working for? A business, a firm? What are you doing?
Yeah. I taking suits to the people who worked on on different. Oh, I know the things. I can't.
You were delivering coats to people.
Oh, doing all kinds of work, and then going back again and doing the head work and.
So essentially, you're doing deliveries of to customers.
Mainly.
Yes, and you have friends. You're making friends at that time. You're 15. Are you still lonely, or have you got people around you?
I only made friends outside.
Right.
Oh, is that your babies?
Yeah. So is this a happy time for you, or another unhappy time?
Happy.
Happy.
It
time.
Was happy.
Yeah.
It was happy.
Yeah.
Like,
and you're working for people who you like. They're good to you.
Absolutely.
Do you have any contact with your mum during this time?
Yeah, but I live with Mum.
Oh, she's in London by this stage.
Yeah, she was working and then left that, and I started working.
And where were you living at that time with your mum? Which area? You weren't in Belsize Park yet, were you?
Around West End.
West End. Mm-hmm.
She managed to get.
So you do that. You do that for a few years. What happens next? Where do you go next?
Then
join the army.
I joined the army. I managed to get.
What, about the age of 18 or so? 3 years later?
Near just over. I was about near 19.
And why did you join the army?
Thought I'd be British.
So what are you doing in the army?
Well, funny enough, nothing.
Right. Fortunately, it's not a time of war.
Nothing. But
a good experience, a good time for you, Pete?
Yes, I enjoyed it as well. And
is that where you learned to drink beer?
I met many non-Jewish people.
Yes.
In that time, I'm very sorry to say, I was quite against the Jewish thing.
Right. So there's no religion in your life at all at that stage. You're
no, none at all.
Yeah. Tell me, forgive me for being personal now, but I know you've been in latter years. You've been a bit embarrassed about your tattoo, the tattoo on your arm.
I'm sorry.
Pardon?
I'm still embarrassed with it.
Is that what did that tattoo come in your army days?
Yes, my dear mum was absolutely ashamed, and she said little was she saying, but why did I have to have it done on that side and not on the right hand side? You know.
Well, because it's like the camps.
Yeah, but that was the only. I was going to do another one, but she said, "Promise me no more." And I kept to a promise.
But at that stage, you were very proud of it. It's something that you did in the army.
But now I don't even know I've got it. Occasionally, someone, oh, look what you got. But I don't even think about it anymore.
Yes, well, when a few years ago in South Hampstead, you used to cover it up, but you don't cover it anymore.
No, what's the point of it now? I wear a long thing, I feel bad with it on. But I don't know I've got it. I don't miss it at all.
What happens after the army? You're there for about 2.5 years. What happens next?
And then I found out I could get to Israel again.
But you're not feeling very Jewish. So why Israel of all places?
And in Israel also, we never thought of army about being religious at all. I was with we hated the the religious Jews there.
So you are on a very non-religious kibbutz in the early days when there's tremendous tensions between the secular and the religious in
Yes.
Israel, and the kibbutzim are very anti-religious.
Yes, and that's how I was as well.
And what are you doing on the kibbutz?
All kinds of work, all
Like
kinds. All kinds of work for the kibbutz, and fruit and things like that. And
Picking fruit, that sort of stuff.
it was great life.
You enjoyed Israel.
Absolutely.
Did you meet anyone while you were there?
Yes, yeah, quite a few people.
Made friends?
Absolutely. I wish I could see them now.
Meet any nice girls?
A few, just a few.
None of them you wanted to marry?
I did want to marry, but they also saw other people as well. I've got pictures at home somewhere.
So you wanted to marry them, they didn't want to marry you?
Well, they did, but then I told them they got to meet my mum, and they didn't want to know anymore.
Right. So it didn't work out for you in terms of marriage.
I wanted to. I went over the second time. I've got pictures of them as well.
Was there anyone in particular, any special person that you wanted to?
Yeah, I did. And she told me some stories, and they went true at all. So I moved out of it.
So you walked away from it.
I walked away, and
So
I wanted to bring them to England to meet Mum, but they didn't want to know.
Pete, you enjoyed Israel so much. Why didn't you stay there?
I wanted to, but Mum came out with a story. The first one was a bit of a story, and then the second one wasn't a story.
What was that?
She had very bad with all kinds of problems. She could walk and work a bit, but not what she could have done later in life.
Pete, your mum's problems and her illness, which feature very strongly in things which happen afterwards, was it physical incapacity? Was she bodily ill, or was it mental and psychological?
She had both.
Both.
Yeah.
And you're the only person she has in the world.
And the thing is, I still remember bits and pieces of her second, but I can't put it right as it should do.
So,
but I know I had to look after her.
So you come back to Israel because you feel that you have to look after your mum.
Yeah.
And you spend pretty much the rest of her life.
Yes.
Looking after her.
Yes.
You are a completely and totally devoted son, absolutely devoted to your mother's well-being.
That's the one thing I did do. I love my dear mum.
How do you look after her, Pete?
I can't. It's so. She was really.
You took her everywhere, didn't you, in the world?
I couldn't explain how. For 5 years of her life, she couldn't walk anymore.
Did you bathe her and change her and do all that sort of stuff?
I did everything, and I got told off by the other people who should be doing that. So sorry, I've got to do it myself.
And at this stage, you're already living in she's living in Belsize Park?
We're living that. Where she got this and then she got me to join her. That I should have the last thing. So thank God, she gave me everything. But I wish I could remember everything now. That's the problem. I knew it then. Last year I knew things, but now I can't remember everything.
Your memory, sure. Pete,
Hopefully
when you came back to England, you joined the railways, didn't you?
Yes, I was there for 10 years.
That was your main occupation here. What did you do on the railways?
I was doing mainly with
Fixing the tracks.
track and all kinds of. And then I became.
Was this the underground or the national network?
The underground.
Underground. So you're doing pretty much manual labor there, fixing tracks and things.
I was working up till with deputy chairman, and what did I do?
Working on the Northern Line.
Northern Line and a few other lines I was working with.
And working on the railways, you become a very, very strong socialist with very strong union feelings. You join the union, you become a passionate socialist.
I thought it, and in some ways I'm still that way. Although I'm conservative now. Don't like it very much, but I still, if I ever do get better again, I will try, but I won't hurt anybody, but I still like the old way sometimes.
So the days on the railways, you had lots of mates, you drank a lot of beer, you did all the stuff with the boys. It wasn't a very Jewish life, was it?
Not at all. And that's the bit I still like. I still like my beer, and I like my the not only the thing, but she knows what I liked.
You like Left?
I like all that stuff.
You like Belgian beers?
Belgian, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah. So
So
you're living in London. You're living with your mum. Your mum is dead ill. You're looking after her, caring for her. You're working on the railways. Do you have friends? Do you have a social life? Do you have girlfriends?
And my mate, what's his name?
No, Jeffrey comes later.
Oh,
He comes a bit later in the story.
he's a good mate of mine.
Yeah, he's a good mate. Okay. We're going to just pause over here, and we're going to go across to New Zealand for the moment. We're going to go to Peter Wise. So it turns out that your mother and his father had the same grandfather. That, I think, makes you pretty much second cousins or something like that. Peter, why don't you fill us in a bit of the background story that whatever the other Peter has omitted, and welcome. And tell us how you land up in New Zealand.
Okay, well, look, first of all, we're in Australia now, not in New Zealand. We immigrated from Slovakia in 1948 to New Zealand, but then a number of years later came to Australia. So
okay,
we're still down under, but anyway. So look, the interesting thing about this was my father and Peter's mother were cousins. They knew each other, I think, reasonably well, but not that well. I think they lived in different towns at the time. But I didn't know at all of Peter's existence. It was only about 7 years ago, or maybe 10 years ago, when I was doing family tree research on my father, I found an advertisement that he had put in Aufbau, which is a German language newspaper, that he'd put in whilst he was recuperating in Buchenwald. And he was looking for an Olga Reichenberg, who was Olga Koritschoner, who was Peter's mother. He was looking for her because I think he was trying to find a way to get out of Europe, and probably Olga was the only person he knew that was outside of Europe. So when I found that name, I went in search of Peter Koritschoner, who was Olga's son. I never found him, but he eventually found me. And by coincidence, I had photos of his family that I didn't know was his family, and he had photos of my family, and he didn't sort of know the connection. So that all came together. Unfortunately, my father passed away in 1982, so I never had the chance to talk to him about the Koritschoner connection. But I asked my mother, who had married my father after the war when I was born, and she said her only memory was in about 1946 or 47, there was a knock at the front door, and there was Olga Koritschoner with a little boy aged about 3 or 4 who was Peter. And she had come to ask my father if he could try and help to get her husband back. And my father then got on a train and went somewhere else in Czechoslovakia. I think it was somewhere near Brno, somewhere further north, and went to try and convince Peter's father to rejoin his mother. And I don't think he was successful in that. And that's the only story that I know of that time. So unfortunately, as I said, my father had passed away, so I had no real knowledge of what the relationship between my father and his cousin was. But obviously, they had lived in the same town for much of the same time. They had common grandparents, and they obviously, he must have known her well enough and been close enough to her for him to have put her name in an ad looking for her after the war. I don't think he found her, by the way.
Thank you. Thank you for all of that. Well, we're going to pause for a few moments just to see some photographs. And then we're going to come back to Pete, and we're going to go to the next part of the story, where things begin to change gear a little bit, and Pete comes into our lives. So I'm going to share my screen with you and show you some of these lovely photographs of Olga to start with.
Here's your mum.
Oh, mummy.
Pretty lady, Pete.
Ah,
Pretty lady.
very.
And pretty. And who's that little kid with all that lovely hair?
I don't know. I know who the lady is. I know who the lady is.
Is that you? She must be holding you.
Oh, absolutely. My dear mum.
Look at you. Weren't you handsome?
I think I was about 4 years old, something like that.
Well, there you are. You're a lovely looking kid. Love that hairstyle. And there you are with your mum.
And that's at the Jewish orphanage.
At Norwood, is it?
At Norwood.
So you're with your mum there. She's come to visit you.
Yes, I was 12 years old.
Still a good looking kid.
And we had to work.
Who's that?
Oh, that's me in Israel.
You're looking very happy, Pete.
I was about 30. I was the only one who had hair. Yes, and that was in Israel too, but not very. That was taken in the oh, what?
In the kibbutz?
No, I've forgotten now.
It's okay.
Oh,
You always liked to dance, didn't you?
yes. Had a lovely time there. Non-Jews they were, and that's my mother's brother.
Your mother's brother, smart looking dude.
He was very, very,
Well-to-do man, wasn't he?
very well to.
Where was he living?
He lived at home as well, but in Bratislava.
Where's this, Pete?
That's in Bratislava. It's the grave of your grandmother.
Oh yes, that's my grandmother's grave there
Where is that?
in Bratislava.
Bratislava.
Bratislava. Some big names.
And here you are with the, where's that, the Moshe Sofer, Tam Sofer in Pressburg.
Yes, and then we met, and then we said goodbye to each other.
Who's we? Who are you saying goodbye to?
I had to go back to England,
This is Peter.
and that's Peter.
Your cousin.
Which Peter?
My cousin who you're talking to now.
Is that right, Pete? That's you there, Peter Wise?
Yes.
That's me.
And this is, of course, after you had already had your correspondence and you met up
Yes.
in Pressburg.
Yes.
Peter, how did Pressburg come into the story?
Well, Pressburg is the German name for the city of Bratislava. So, and Bratislava was part of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, and the languages there were a mixture of German, Slovak, and Hungarian, and the city had different names and different languages. So, if you were German-speaking, you called it Pressburg, and if you were Slovak-speaking, you called it Bratislava, and if you were Hungarian-speaking, you'd be Pozsony. So, and we met up here shortly after we met each other on the internet, which was early 2013. Told Peter that Doris and I were going to be in Bratislava. Did he want to join us? And he did, and that was in June 2013 when this photo was taken. And this is the tombs of all the learned rabbis of the area.
Sofer family.
The Sofer family, yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, that's it. Those are the photographs. Pete, I want to move forward a little bit because in 1974, Lindy and I arrived in England, and I was working part-time for the Lubavitch Foundation. In 1975, I started an adult education program, which was one of the first in the country at the time, and it was called Project Return in Stamford Hill, in the Lubavitch Foundation in Stamford Hill. And one day, a fellow turns up, and his name is Peter Koritschoner.
Huh.
How did that happen? That was the beginning of your return.
Yes. Absolutely.
So you go to Stamford Hill.
Oh, memories.
And who was speaking? Shlomo?
I think so, yes.
Shlomo was speaking?
I think so.
Goodness, you. Yeah.
You wasn't given you wasn't given the thing.
No, I was the organizer.
Your mates, the rabbis, he was doing it.
Pali Lowenthal and Ephraim Potash.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Now you're mentioning names.
so how did you come, what made you come to that religious event?
No, it was what's his name? My mate, Jeremy.
Jeffrey.
He started all that nonsense.
All right, Jeffrey. Let's
Yeah.
hear from you, mate. What happened? How did you meet Peter, and how did you bring him back to his roots?
I've known him for years.
Shlomo,
Okay.
we don't think we've got Jeffrey. I'm not sure whether
He was here before.
He was.
Jeffrey is online. There's someone called Jeffrey at the bottom of the screen.
There is, but he's on an Android phone, so he's struggling a little bit, and he can't find.
Yeah, he's there, Ruthie.
All
He's
right.
there. Nobody. I don't know whether he can hear. I've asked him.
So you have an angel. His name is Jeffrey. He's a good guy. If I remember correctly, he drives a taxi, right?
Yes, so
He drives a black cab, and he becomes your friend. And he schleps you every week to back to Stamford Hill, the place that you hated when you were a kid. and it brings you to the Lubavitch Foundation and Project Return. And now after each evening, on Wednesday evenings, off you go to a cafe in Manor Road, and you kosher cafe, and you have a bite to eat and something to drink.
Absolutely.
Shlomo, I think Jeffrey's there.
Right, Jeffrey. Can you speak? Can we hear Jeffrey?
Hello.
Okay. Yes.
Hello. Good.
Hi, Jeffrey. How are you?
Robert. Good morning.
So tell us how you meet. Tell us how you meet your mate.
Well, from what I recall, I got the call to learn a little bit of Torah at maybe a deeper level. So a friend mentioned the lubavitch. So I turned up, and Rabbi Lou was making a shir, and in the class was Peter. And at that time, there were about, I think, 5 or 6 shirim going on, different rooms. There was a class for the girls, and halfway through the evening, everybody would meet in the hall where coffee and cake was being served. And I like coffee and cake, so and we went out, and the boys and girls would chat, and then I got chatting to Peter, and we became pals. And he would say to me, I think Dr. Stern is giving a share. We'll get a good schluff in there, won't we, Jeffrey?
And so the two of you become absolutely inseparable mates over 40 years.
Yes, we've been quite close. Yes, it had
and you see Peter changing from this rebellious kid who is spent half his life amongst with Gentiles, and even when he's amongst Jews, he's choosing to be with Jews who don't care very much for Judaism, and suddenly he is beginning to embrace the faith.
Yes, he got the call.
He got the call.
like I did. So Rabbi, it's explained that a call goes out every day in heaven to bring us back.
Thank you.
I heard, and Peter must have heard the same blow.
Okay, thank you, Jeffrey. Let's come back to Peter for a moment. So, Pete, you're now you're living in Belsize Park with your mum,
Yes.
and you start going to shul, not South Hampstead. You land up at Great Portland Street.
Great Portland Street, yes.
Yeah, and you.
But mainly for Shabbos, not for the rest of the week.
Your mum is still alive at this stage, or it's after she's died?
Yes. No, she was still alive with me.
Right. Is she pleased that you're going to shul?
Yeah, she sort of quite happy for me to go to shul.
Are you keeping kosher by this stage? Have you changed, or are you still,
no?
No.
I mean, I used to buy stuff that wasn't didn't buy any treif, but it wasn't the best stuff either. I didn't buy no chicken or anything like that. I did when she was okay. She'd eat anything in those days, but as soon as she got ill, then I started to give it kosher to eat.
So she gets really ill towards the end of her life, and you're spending much of your time. You're not working on the railways anymore,
No,
you're pretty much full-time looking after your mum, aren't you?
I gave up working and I had to look after
And
mum.
you become her carer.
That was the main thing in my life.
Yeah, to be a mum, care of your mum, yeah. And Pete, somehow you become connected with South Hampstead, which of course is the local shul. It's still very early days. You start, I don't know how you came to South Hampstead, but you didn't come every Shabbat. You would come occasionally, you would share your favors with Great Portland Street.
Yes.
You were very close to Rabbi Barry Marcus. You used to enjoy going there.
At that
used to walk
time,
there on Shabbat. Okay. And Pete, and then of course, a hugely important thing happens in your life. You become friendly with the Tabushas, Ron and Julie Tabush and their family, who are here with us. And in fact, they become, in the absence of your own family, after your mum dies, they become your family.
Absolutely.
And the Tabush children are your children.
Yeah, well, they weren't born yet. They weren't born yet.
But as they were born, they became your kids. You adopted them.
Absolutely.
And the Tabushas, Ron and Julie, took you in as if you were part of their family.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And you'd go to spend Shabbat with them, and they would look after you, and they would care for you. And
I first met Ron first. I didn't meet Julie.
Yeah.
And then after about, I think it was about 6 months later, I was talking to her. It was lovely.
And whenever their kids have birthdays, you buy them birthday presents, and you consider them to be your children, like your own grandchildren.
If I can't do it, then I'm going to be in real trouble. I've got the next one coming up. What's her name? No, I've got the. She'll be 11 now. The youngest.
Mia.
Yes.
Mia.
She's
I need a back afterwards.
So Pete, then you become a feature. Well, Ron, Julie, do you want to say anything? Do you want to come into this conversation?
It's fun.
Hi, everybody. What's up? So I met Pete. I think it was a Shiva Pete. I think it was.
Yeah.
It was a Shiva.
Yes.
1998 must have been. And then one thing led to another. We, like everybody would, invite him for Shabbat. And then he came pretty much every week. And I mean, we didn't have family also nearby. So
he adopted us and we adopted him.
So it was a mutual,
agreement.
And it was very much a highlight of the week for everybody, when for the kids, one by one.
Well, he saw them each be born. So we invited him. I think we invited you to our wedding, Pete. But at the time, you didn't have a passport. You couldn't come.
Didn't have nothing.
And that's a real regret we have, that you weren't there at our wedding.
Thank God.
But you were with us in our hearts.
Thank God I left you alone.
But after that, Peter it became completely natural and normal for Peter to be part of our family. And he saw every one of our children be born. And he came every week. And he's an extra grandparent to our children. They consider him their grandparent as well, amongst, they've got 2 grandfathers and 2 grandmothers. That's the way it is.
Got a lovely back.
Thank you, Tabushas. I want to come back to Pete. Pete, so you become a feature of South Hampstead, and two important things happen. Apart from the fact that you're there every morning with your knapsack on your back, etc. We'll talk about your walking and your hiking in a moment. But the 2 things which happen that are significant is, the first is that you take on saying Kaddish. You become the person who says Kaddish for everyone who dies and whose family are not going to be saying Kaddish for them for a year.
Yes.
And you have a little diary And every time somebody dies and the family tell me, I ask the family when after I've officiated, will anybody be saying Kaddish during the course of the year? And they say, no, we're not that religious. But if there's somebody who would say Kaddish, would be very grateful. And I approach, and others approach you, and you take out your little book and you put down the name and the date of the person's passing, and you come to shul every morning and every evening, and you're probably saying Kaddish at any one time for about 30 people or so, and you know exactly, you know, when to end saying Kaddish because your diary tells you, and you become the Kaddish man in South Hampstead Shul. How do you feel about that?
In those days, I was very happy doing it. I can't do it now, unfortunately.
But you carried a lot of souls with you, didn't you?
22 years. I would have loved to have gone longer, but this thing going, losing things.
Yeah. And the second thing that happens is that after Cecil White passes away, you become the sweetie man.
Yes.
And notwithstanding the fact that you suffer from diabetes, you're busy giving sweets to all the children.
Yeah, thanks.
And you're driving Robertson Lindy crazy by doing that.
I know, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm trying to behave myself, Robertson.
Oh.
But all the children come to you in shul and they all crowd around you.
I love it.
And you've always got sweets in your pocket.
I love it.
An inexhaustible supply of sweets.
And now, unfortunately, what are we doing? Can't get it off.
Can't get back to shul.
I'm trying to get it another way, like.
And Pete, we go to Poland on a trip and you join us. And we go to Auschwitz.
Yeah. That's
and we come to the, so it's emotional for me as well. We come to the ovens, where a lot of your family died, perished.
I think so. I'm bored.
And you go down and you stand by the ovens. And you said Kaddish. And you wept like a child.
You did.
I still. Oh dear Lord. Oh, I do remember those days. Oh, I do remember those times. How have I known it? Oh, it was a terrible time. I'm very sorry, Rabbi. I still can't get over it.
But Peter, at that time in Poland, after you'd said that final Kaddish, you said how blessed you felt that you had at last set those souls to rest. And I want you to remember that deep peace in your mind and your heart when you said that final Kaddish there in that place. I want you to remember the peace that you brought to those souls.
I remember those days very much, Robert.
Wonderful time, didn't we?
I would have been in a nicer place. I'm glad I went for the first and the last, but I couldn't do it again. You do, I know that, but I can't do that again. And my dear mum would have been happy that I went, but I did. She couldn't go. She was near the border, but she wouldn't go. She could not do it. I was a child when she went, but she couldn't go.
Pete, there's different ways of looking at a person's life. If one were simply to describe your life from the outside as someone who didn't have a dad that he knew, had a pretty rough beginning in terms of your education, in the places that you were, that you had to leave your home because your mum couldn't cope with you, that late on in your life you had to spend much of your life caring for her and looking after her, that you've been racked with all kinds of illnesses, including diabetes and arthritis and severe asthma and epilepsy and God knows what else. People from the outside would say, you know, this guy, he's had a pretty rotten deal in life. He was dealt a rotten hand. But that's not the way in which you see your life, is it?
No, I try to make things the best I can, especially now. I try not to. I promise to keep the world, you know, people okay by me now. I don't look for any bad things for them. But I wish I would remember some of the things. That's what I do miss. I miss things and I don't know what's going on sometimes.
Pete, how do you feel about the people around you, the community?
Oh, they're fantastic. They're absolutely fantastic. I don't think I deserve it. I don't think I deserve it, but I love it all the same. I love
and
going.
what would you like to say to Ruth and to Julie and to Bobby and to Mark, their sores, the people who have cared for you in the last number of months after it was discovered that you had a brain tumor? What are your feelings about these?
But now they tell me it's gone down.
It has.
It has gone down, thank God. It shrunk. Indeed.
And I've got to look after myself now. Now I'm going to try and lose my stomach a bit. But no, thank God. And thank God for you as well. And
Alexis. And
Alexis as well, yes, sorry, Alexis. Peter, what do you want to say to these people who've looked after you? Is there anything you'd like to say to them now?
I wish I could say, but what I'm feeling inside, that's enough. But I can't bring it out. Sometimes I can. I'm hoping maybe a couple of months I could.
You just want to put on your shorts and your backpack and you want to get on the train because you've got a ticket for life from TfL and you can travel anywhere in the country and you want to get back to Seven Sisters and walk across the hills while you're hiking and then have a good beer.
Now you're talking. But I shouldn't be talking that way for your I love you, all your people.
The family.
As she says, the family, more than family. I never had that before when I was a youngster. It was nice that I met Yiddish people, Ron and everybody, and that's my best.
Do you have any complaints against God for your life?
No, I have complaints against myself more than anything.
Unmute.
I've been naughty.
Peter, can you hear me? It's David.
Right.
Peter, can you hear me? It's David here.
I can hear you, yes.
Great.
I was going to mention all the time you spent with Peter Deutsch and all the time you spent with David Blechner. Every day you were with both of them. Every day with David Blechner walking, every single day. These things can't be forgotten.
I do remember him.
You remember?
Pete, you've done a lot of chesed, a lot of kindness in your life.
Absolutely. Very much so.
I wish I'd done more for you people. Oh, God willing.
I'm glad you're round the corner from us again, Peter.
Huh?
I'm glad you're round the corner from me again.
God help you. You poor devil.
Oh, you're back. You're back at last, thanks to Ruth and others. You're back in your own home, and it's been refurbished, and you now have heating, and you now have hot water, and the council have been called to task, and they've done what they need to do. And please God, you should have happy and fulfilled years in the place that you love, where you live together with your mum, your dear mum, with her memories, with a community around you who love you so much and who value you for all that you have given to us. Never mind, what you think we've given to you. We've received so much more from you, just in terms of your love, your kindness, your humility, and the beautiful person that you are, a person who's been through so much in his life. It has been really very, very special to hear your story, and to thank you to Lawrence and to Gillian and the other hosts for putting this on. Please God, we should have other happy occasions to be able to continue to talk about all the good things in life. We wish you good health, Pete, and good times ahead.
And for you, and for you, and for you so much.